Hello, hello. So I just decided to come back to talk about some things that's just pretty serious. Pretty serious. Everybody's a clone, especially black people, so-called black people. Everybody's a clone. I remember uh, listening to Bobby Hemmett. I can't remember the name of the video, but it was one of his teachings, and I believe it's in this book called "The Finding of the Third Eye." I want to say it's by Vera Wang. I don't know if that's her real name, but it's called The Finding of the Third Eye. That's the book. And I'm going to read it. But he talked about in that book how in 1986, so-called black people were supposed to be at the height of their consciousness. You know, they were supposed to rise in consciousness around that time, 1986. I can't help but to recall in 1986, they had this thing that went on with the Challenger. They had this what is this, something that happened with the Challenger. Okay, I can't help but to realize that happened, and somebody made a song about that. Okay, it was like in the early 2000s. It was a Caucasian lady who made a song about the crash of 1986. Why is she making a song in the 2000s about the crash of 1986? It's called "Anything Can Happen." Okay, it's just, that's interesting. What he's saying. I believe it was around that time that people were cloned because so-called black people were supposed to rise back up in consciousness, and that would have been the end of many white people. Okay, maybe not all, but many white people. It would have been the end of them. And really, it's the entities. I don't want to just say white, just white people like that. Certain entities that are kind of controlling things. It would have been the end for them. So something happened where, I don't know how they do it, but they're cloned. And I remember in that video that Bobby Hemmett talked about, it was in 1992 around that teaching. It was the 90s around the teaching that Bobby Hemmett. He talked about why was it black people were supposed to rise back up in consciousness in 1986, but you get in the 90s and they dumber than ever. And 2025, 2026, they definitely even worse than that. I mean, I got to the point where I remember saying in 2024, I said, these aren't the same people. I don't know who these are. And I remember when I was living in Los Angeles and driving through Hollywood, down the Hollywood Boulevard. And I remember just seeing this sign that stuck out to me. It was a billboard. And it said New Negroes. It says it was two black guys, young looking black guys, right? Like in their 20s. And they were called the New Negroes. And I was like, what does that mean? The New Negroes? Like you just changing. It's like like things are completely changing. Like this group of people are completely changing. They're not the same. So it's really a good idea for people to come together. Now I'm realizing it's really best for people to come together. I know you got to pay your bills and you about your money, but I think once you realize you might have been cloned, then you'll see, and somebody asked, what if they weren't born until like the 90s or maybe the 2000s or something like that, Well, I don't know who gave birth to you. If somebody gave birth to you that don't realize they were cloned and they low in consciousness and you can't even have this conversation with them and they gave birth to you, then, you got to be careful. But, I think it was done on purpose that the Gen Zs, specifically the Gen Zs, were targeted to completely ruin them. Okay. And I guess this is Gen Alpha, Gen Zs or Gen Alpha. Some Gen Zs know how to write in cursive, but the Gen Alphas, they don't know how to write in cursive. It's just like they're dumbing down the generations, because I believe those are the most ancient souls that's supposed to be coming back. Those are the return of the ancient ones that was supposed to come back like around the 2000s and stuff, like the Gen Zs. And so I believe it was done by design to have like the crack era around the 1980s or whatever. And that's a lot of that is Generation X. And they would give birth to the millennials and the Gen Zs. Okay. So if you have parents like that, if you got that kind of epidemic going on, then what happens to the millennials and the Gen Zs? It was done by design to really just mess up, make sure that they would just ruin the community around the 60s and 70s. I know that black people were already broken anyway, but I'm just saying. I can't look past the fact that there was an effort to make sure that they were even more dumbed down than they were, to make sure they never wake up. So yeah, it's really a good idea for people to come together. If they only knew that somebody else was living their life, and they're cloned for a reason. And I already saw what was going on. If you're not the real you, somebody else is living your life while you think you're living your life. This is all an illusion. You're not where you think you are. Why aren't you where you think you are? Everything is mine. Like, what's going on here? You have some entities that are actually not real. They're just only a part of the program, like the computer program, NPCs or whatever. And you got others that are original beings. And I can't help but to realize, what are they being used for? The original people are in the sunken place. And you think you're living your life, but somebody else is living the life. They're in a better world. They're in a high dimension, in a better world where there's peace. And none of them are black. While black people stay in a sunken place. And I think black people are purposely staying in a sunken place, so this group of people can stay where they are. The black people have to stay low. So at this time, I'm not interested in, when I know everything is just a lie, when I know everything is just diabolical, it's just evil, plain evil. It's almost like, yeah, I have to survive, but I don't want to get stuck on just having to survive and knowing that I'm in an evil, wicked world. Not only is it evil and wicked, I'm not real. I already said that I wasn't, real, but like somebody else is living. It's like the movie called They Live that came out in 1988. The movie called They Live. In order for them to live, certain people cannot wake up. People think they're awake. I get annoyed when people say, wake up, I'm trying to wake you up. You're not awake if you're even real. Okay, if you're even real, you're not awake. Who are you trying to wake up? Do you know that you're not real? Do you know that you might be in this sunken place while somebody else is in another dimension, living a life that they have to depend on you staying asleep, thinking you're living a life, but you're like an induced, what do you call it? It was in 1988, that movie called They Live. What did he say? You're like an induced type of state of consciousness. I forgot exactly how he said it, but it's a psychology type of term where they have you in like a sleep, but it's like you're dreaming. Like this isn't real. And what's the purpose of that? What would be the purpose of not living a real life? Like, this is not real. So what would be the purpose of that? So this is I just wanted to talk about that really quickly. But anyway, that's it. Now I'll talk later.